Hey everybody, this is Mark from the Geek Church here, and today's episode we're going to be talking about animation, particularly long-form films and those that have won awards, namely Academy Awards. We've got a lot to talk about and a lot of years to cover, so stay tuned. Okay, you might be aware that the Academy has a Best Animated Film category, and you might not be aware that this is a relatively new category that was added only in 2001. So that's, 25 years ago? Okay, as far as what I can tell in the research that I did, the whole reason why the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, or AMPAS, was resistant to the idea of a Best Animated Film category was because so few of them were being released. And yeah, at least that used to be the case, because I can tell you, like, before, say, 1989 or so, it was very rare to have a handful of films even being released to theaters. Okay, but that all changed in 1991 when the Oscars were kind of given a message that they really couldn't ignore, and I'm going to get to that. Before that, there was always these special awards that the Oscars gave to things, you know, and this is something that the Oscars do, I've noticed, where if they pass up on certain things, they'll give somebody like a special award. For example, like, it took till 1993 before Steven Spielberg got his first Oscar for Schindler's List. But he had made, like, Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., so many really awesome films before that that were really Oscar-worthy. And they give him, like, in 1987, they give him this Irving G. Thalberg Memorial Award, and I don't even know who Irving G. Thalberg is. Yeah, don't get me wrong, it's very awesome to receive a special honor award by the Academy, but in a way, a lot of times it feels like, oh, you mean we didn't give him an award by this time? Well, we'll give him a sort of a special award and stuff like that. So yeah, so Snow White was given the special award back when it first came out, and not the new Snow White, but the original one, the one that the first full-length animated film. And there was also special achievement given to Roger Rabbit, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit, back in 1989. And then there was another for Toy Story in 1996. Now keep in mind both those films came out the year prior, because that's how the Oscars work. So pretty much all that changed with the Disney Renaissance, that time where Disney was putting out, like, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and all those type of films that changed animation as we know it, where that really got the attention. The hit was Beauty and the Beast in 1991, and it was so good, it was the first animated film to be nominated for an Oscar. It lost to Silence of the Lambs, but it was enough to get, say, the Oscars' attention. Okay, now believe it or not, that Beauty and the Beast is only like one of 3 animated films to ever even get a nomination for Best Picture overall. The others were Toy Story 3 and Up, which I'll be discussing a little later here. But I will have to say, you know, it was that 1991 was definitely like a wake-up call to suddenly where they suddenly realized, wow, everyone really likes animation. And by that time, like in the early 90s, it changed to where there was several animated films being produced each year, and some from independent studios, some from well-established studios. Dreamworks was sort of coming in as well, so it was building up, is what was happening. But it still took 10 years before it got there. Okay, so I'm going to spend the next part of this thing looking at the choices for the Best Animated Film by year, and I'm going to work backwards, starting with this year, 2025, which will cover 2024's animated films, because, yeah, this year has just barely begun, and I have no idea what films would even be nominated, because, honestly, I'm not really certain what animated films are even out now. But hey, so much of this I've already posted on YouTube Shorts, as well as TikTok, so if you want to skip to a certain time on this, you can do that, where I kind of have a wrap-up on this, because some of this I might add some new footage in there, I might not, because as I was doing this whole thing, I discovered there were a lot of animated films that I didn't talk about that were worth talking about, And that's pretty much what I discuss here in this thing, where I talk about what the nominees were, and then I also talk about which animated films came out that year that really should have been picked for that year. And sometimes I'm in agreement with what the Oscars chose as the winner, and sometimes I'm not, because I think they should have chosen another nomination. And sometimes I'm upset because they didn't choose a nomination, or they didn't even nominate the one that should have won. But we'll get to that. Hey everybody, Mark from the Geek Church. This month I'm going to be doing an interesting episode on my show where I'm going to focus on all the Oscar winners for Best Animated Film. And I'm going to start by going backwards. I'm going to talk about what's nominated for this year, or actually for last year, because that's how the Oscars work. So here are the 2024 Best Animated Film nominees. There's Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and The Wild Robot. And the winner is... No, I don't know it, honestly. Anyway, if I had to pick, I would pick The Wild Robot. I already did like a 10-minute rant on that film and what I really think of it and why I think it's a masterpiece. However, what I believe is probably going to win, and you can leave a comment if I'm wrong on this, is probably going to be Flow. Flow is one of those films that I think the Oscars really like. It's one of those films that's very, I wouldn't say it's pretentious, because I actually believe its message is very relevant, and I think it's a very decent film, and it's really stretching the boundaries of what animation can do, and best of all, the film has not one single line of dialogue, and it looks pretty good too. But hey, I have to say Flow and The Wild Robot are actually very similar in how they do their stories. The Wild Robot actually has dialogue, but it does focus a lot on animals, and there is a flood involved. But they both go in different directions. I don't even feel right even comparing the two, even though there are some similarities. It's like a Venn diagram. Anyway, so Inside Out 2, I would be surprised if it won, but Pixar films generally have a way of winning. But Inside Out 2, it's a good film, and it made a lot of money, and here's the thing, I never really thought it was, it's really kind of just very similar to the original. I didn't really think it was, don't get me wrong, I think it's a good film. But I have to admit, in order to be a sequel to the original, it has to be a super great film. And I have to admit, it was decent. It did give us Dream Factory, which I've also talked about before. Okay. As for Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, I watched the film. It has some funny moments, as do most Aardman films. But on the whole, I have to say there's nothing really classic about this film. There's nothing in this film that stands out and goes like, yeah, this is a masterpiece. I feel like it's Wallace and Gromit is practically a series, but it's one with very few episodes, to tell the truth. I mean, they had those short films back in was it really the 80s? Wow. I mean, this has been going for a while, and we've really got very little Wallace and Gromit. But yeah, so anyway. And then there's Memoir of a Snail, which I haven't seen. If you want to at me at the comments on this, go ahead. Yes, I did pick a winner without seeing all the nominees. I'll give you that. There's going to be a lot of films I'm going to talk about this month that I haven't seen because I just can't seem to find access to them. And yeah, I probably could subscribe to AMC Plus and get that, but honestly, I don't really want to do that. So I really just want to get talk about all these animated films that at least I have seen. And now I'm going to get to films that really should have been nominated. Why is not Transformers 1 on this list? Transformers 1 is a very good film, and it does push the boundaries of animation. And I guess it's attached to a franchise, but it does try to attempt some sort of reboot or something. It is a very well done film. I really think it deserved at least a nomination. Jeez. Well, I can understand Moana 2 not being nominated. Same with Kung Fu Panda 4 and Despicable Me 4. Apparently, I haven't heard really anything much about Moana 2. I never really wanted Moana 2 to be made, honestly. Moana is really a great film, and I can't see how they could follow up with it. And then there's Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. They made this. I haven't seen it. It's on in Max now. I'll probably watch it this weekend, but yeah, I barely heard anything about it when it was out. And then, of course, there's the Garfield movie, which, yeah, you're not getting a nomination. And let's go into, and then there's a film I did a 10-minute rant on, Piece by Piece. I guess you could even nominate this as a documentary. Why it got passed up? It is a different film. I would recommend it if you like documentaries, and if you like animation, and if you like Lego, and if you like Pharrell Williams. Well, there's a lot to like there. Anyway, let's move on to the next year. Okay, maybe by now you already know what won the Best Animated Oscar for 2024, so I want to talk about what the best animated films of 2023, or at least what the Oscars thought it was. Okay, the nominees were The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And the winner is, I don't really have an envelope prop, The Boy and the Heron. Yeah, I don't really agree. I really didn't like this film. I have to admit, it's just so weird. And I just didn't really see what the heck this film was about. And I've watched several YouTube videos trying to explain this film. And most of the time I get like, oh, this film is meta-commentary on Studio Ghibli. And I'm going like, well, hey, Studio Ghibli has produced a lot of great films. And some of them have won Oscars, some have not. And yeah, that's kind of what maybe they were due. I'm not sure. As much as I like Elemental, I will have to say that I'm not really sure it should be the winner. Don't get me wrong, I like this story. I've watched it a few times, but I guess I have to be in the right mood to watch this film. And yeah, I guess I really didn't know what to really expect from it. It did make a lot, which I'm very glad, because this is at a time where movies in the theaters and the surefire hits don't become surefire hits. Elemental made its money slowly, but it did get there, and it was enough for Pixar to stay in business, which is what I like. So you might be surprised, because if you know me, you know that I really love Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but I don't think Across the Spider-Verse is worth an Oscar. I just found this film to be bursting with just way too much energy, and I feel like it sets up a sequel that we're not going to see for a long, long time. And something tells me, like, one day I'll have all three of these Spider-Man movies on DVD, and I'll just sit and watch them like I watched Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, the original trilogy, because I think there is a good story to be told in all these. The problem is we're seeing so little of this story here, and it's just so much. It's really hard to even follow sometimes, and the eye doesn't even know what to do, and you have scenes with like 500 Spider-Men in them. It's crazy. So I just saw Robot Dreams, and I have to admit this film was not what I was expecting it to be. It's just about a dog who lives in 80s New York City, and they go out of their way to show it's 80s New York City, even showing the Twin Towers, which I thought, wow, you went out of your way to do that. I don't think there's a single line of dialogue here. I don't really know how the anthropomorphic world works here, why a dog can buy a robot and then leave it on the beach after it rusts, and for some reason he can't get back to it. And then I kind of like how the robot is kind of dreaming of getting back to it. And there's a really interesting story to be told here. This almost made me the winner, except there is one that I thought was deserving of the Oscar, and that is Nimona. Yes, this straight-to-Netflix film is just plain great. It shows a society where fear is used as a control, even though it's used as this idea of all things grand. But it is about fear, and it is about overcoming fear, and it's about embracing differences. There's something about this film that I think really needs to be seen by everyone today. So yeah, that would have been my pick. Anyway, so there were certain films that were not nominated. I think the biggest disappointment was Disney's Wish, that film. You know what? I think there's a good film in there somewhere, but yeah, unfortunately, it didn't really live up to any of expectations or hype. Then there's the Super Mario Brothers movie, which, big success, but I guess, I don't know, do we just ignore the fact that this film exists, and do we ignore the fact it made a lot of money? Well, I have really only seen it maybe twice. Didn't really want to see it again, honestly, but yeah. Then there's the film Migration from Illumination. I didn't see it, so if you want to out me at the comments, you could. Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget, I'm afraid, doesn't really live up to the first film, and I have to admit, it would not be worthy of the Oscar performance. So yeah, I'm going to say, yeah, they're probably good that they didn't do that. What really should have shown up in the nomination is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. This film has a great style of animation, and it is just a good film overall. Why didn't it do that? And let's not forget about Adam Sandler's Leo. Man, can Happy Madison never get an animation nod? I guess it just can't. They will try with an animated film and just not get it. Oh, and then there's Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. Do I even need to mention that one? Did you see it? Do you remember it? Anyway, so that was for the 2023 films. And yes, it was an interesting year for animation. Okay, everybody, it's time to talk about the 2022 Academy Award Best Animated Film nominees and winners. So the nominees were Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, and Turning Red. And the winner is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Now, I'm going to have to disagree with this one. I mean, don't get me wrong, I watched Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, but I've never watched it again. In fact, probably out of all these films, I may have liked it the least out of all of them, but I feel bad saying that because I know a lot of hard work was put into this film. And, you know what, maybe I should watch it again because, I don't know, you ever watched a film and you go like, that doesn't mean much to me. And then you watch it again, it's like, well, okay, now I see what you're trying to do. Maybe I think it'll have that effect. I hope it does. Anyway, but my winner, though, would be, hey, Puss in Boots. That's a different story. I've watched that film several times. It is so, so good. They really captured this tale about somebody who fears death into something just totally epic, and it takes place within, realistically, the Shrek world, and yet at the same time comes wonderfully amazing with a great animated style that is very kinetic and feels like paint flowing out of these guys. I mean, they totally redesigned some of the animation just to make it like this. It's beautiful looking, and I've talked about it before, and if you haven't seen it, you've got to see it. And I know Shrek 5, the trailer is getting a lot of panning right now, so maybe they need to go towards a more Puss in Boots direction, just a suggestion. But hey, more than me have made the suggestion. As for Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, I love this film with all my heart. I am serious. I don't know how this got a nomination because it's mostly live action, really. There is animation in it, but I've seen films that have animation in them not get nominated for it, but this one, Best Animated Film, I mean, I guess you couldn't do this film without the animation. It's weird to me. I don't know. It'd be like nominating, say, Who Framed Roger Rabbit for Best Animated Film or something like that. Not that they could do that. But Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, it makes me just happy and sad all at once. It is just a beautiful looking film. Anyway, The Sea Beast, I remember seeing. I remember thinking it was a very good story, and it's about really how we deal with the concept of monsters as we know it. Like, if something is giant and it's ravaging, does that make it a monster? I think that's the basic gist. That was my takeaway from this film, and that's about the thing I remember most about this film. A lot of interesting graphics in it. I think it's deserving of the nomination, so hey, what can I say? Now, as for Turning Red, I can tell you, Turning Red is one of those films, like, you will either like it or you will hate it. And I could tell from the first few minutes of this film that I was either going to like or hate this film. As it is, I really like it. It has a lot of good moments in it. It addresses adolescence in the most awkwardly way possible, but it's so different for Disney and Pixar to do a film like this that I loved it for that, just for that right there. So, yeah. Okay, so there are a lot of films that didn't make it to the nomination, and I'm not surprised. Strange World, another attempt from Disney to make a full-scale adventure film, like, say, Treasure Planet or Atlantis: The Lost Empire, and those films, they never get a lot of love, do they? And this one really didn't get a lot of love. I mean, this film was just out, and no one talks about it at all. Same with the Disney and Pixar's Lightyear. You know, the one that had the cat in it. You might remember the cat from Lightyear, but you might not remember anything else. Yeah, I know. And then there was a film called Luck. Yeah, I know. I didn't. That showed up on Apple TV. I watched it. It's definitely feels like a Pixar film. In fact, you might notice a certain executive producer was involved in this. But it's just not as engaging. I did like the overall the idea of the film. I think was better than its execution. So I'll give it that one. There's one R-rated film that was called The House, and I watched this on Netflix. If you haven't seen this film, it's just about it's three different stories that are tied together rather loosely, and I mean loosely is probably the loosest word I could use for them, because one of them takes place in a human world, then it goes anthropomorphic, and then it kind of gets really weird. But it's about time we get more R-rated Oscar nomination for Best Animated Feature. They need to get more Oscar nods. And one thing I was surprised is that The Bad Guys didn't show up. Remember that film? Yeah, I know, it's getting a sequel here. I love that film. That should have been nominated. Come on. Please? Oh, come on. I mean, really. That really was something special. Anyway, I mean, the film is straight up fun, and generally films that are just straight up fun oftentimes don't really make the list unless they are deep in some way, and I guess that's sort of the qualifier. Yeah. I remember a stop-motion film called Wendell and Wild. I remember starting to watch this film. I don't remember if I even finished watching this film. I don't really remember much about this film, really. Stop-motion animation, yeah. So, also, Minions, Rise of Gru. Remember that? Yeah, that was held back. Didn't deserve a nomination, so no complaints there. One film that really should have gotten a nomination, a film that I saw on Netflix. It was called Intergalactic. It has this kind of almost Spider-Verse kind of style of animation, and apparently it's not rated, so I'm assuming that it is another R-rated film that probably should have made it a nomination. Hey, what you gonna do? Speaking of Netflix, or films, animated films on Netflix, there was Apollo 10.5. This film really had nothing to do with the space program, but it was really about how a child perceived the space program back then. They were apparently living in Houston. It uses a lot of rotoscoping to do its animation. I didn't really like this film. I kind of felt it was dripping with too much nostalgia, which I kind of felt really poisons it. And another film that didn't make it was The League of Super Pets. I mean, I thought this film was kind of fun, but like I said, the fun ones usually don't get it, or the funs that... But there is some deeper meaning in that. There's a story of the Bat Hound, and his backstory was kind of painful. But feels like a backstory of another film, like, say, from Toy Story 2. But a lot of people have said that. Okay, and then of course there's a Hotel Transylvania film that I think was straight to Amazon Prime, and it's not surprising that didn't really make it. I know I watched that film, but I don't really remember much about it. Anyway, next time we're going to discuss the 2021 Oscars and the winners and what should have been nominated. All right, time to discuss the 2021 Best Animated Film that the Oscars either chose or didn't choose. Well, in this case, the nominees are Encanto, Flea, Luca, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, and Raya and the Last Dragon. And the winner is Encanto. And in this case, I absolutely 100% fully agree with their choice. This was a nice work. This is a film that I watch over and over again and love to sing the songs. This is a very deep film with a message about families and alienation, and there's so much I can talk about with this film, but let's get on to what should have also been nominated as well as the other nominees. First of all, Luca is a very good film, I have to admit. This is one of those films in which the stakes are low, but the drama the story feels very real to it, even though it's about these two sea monsters. I just kind of overall kind of like Luca. So yeah, it deserves this nomination. So with Raya and the Last Dragon, I wouldn't have nominated that. There's so much in this film that feels so derivative. When the trailers came out, everyone wanted to compare it to Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's another straight-up adventure film from Disney, and those just don't really work. Why? I kind of feel like I feel like they really should. I mean, because there is something to this film. The ending of the film, I think, is really good, but this film, Raya and the Last Dragon, I think the moral kind of goes a little both ways. At first, it's like you got to learn to trust, and then the other thing is like don't trust just everybody. And I guess that's kind of a complex moral, but I don't really know what to make of this. So now I have a soft spot for Mitchells versus the Machines. I've seen this film many times. Absolutely love it. If Encanto didn't exist, I would for sure fight somebody in the Oscars to make this film Best Picture. But I understand why it didn't. Encanto's too good of a film. This one is almost just as good, and I'm not going to say better because I think I just love Encanto so much. Now, the final one, Flea, that's a film I haven't seen. I think it's about somebody who's gay and has to, I think they're coming out of the closet or something like that. I don't know. I just read the plot summary of it. And if you want to at me in the comments that I haven't seen this because I'm some sort of white bigot or something, and I mean, choose your words very carefully here. But yeah, I'm sorry I haven't seen that. I need to find that somewhere and do see it. Another film I haven't seen that I'm told came out in 2021 was Mad God. Now, this is a film I'm told is absolutely crazy, and I think Stan Winston, or I think that's the name, some guy who was big into special effects, had been making this film for years upon years upon years, and finally got released, and most people were very impressed by it. So, yeah, I haven't seen it. You know what else I don't see on the nomination is Boss Baby Family Business. Kind of glad that one didn't get nominated. And I haven't seen that one because, honestly, I just don't even want to see this franchise ever again. Maybe I should be kinder to it, but I have a feeling that this is just sort of one of those franchises that isn't going to die off very quickly, is it? Well, we'll see. Hey, remember Sing 2? That was released around this time. That didn't get a nomination? I'm actually pretty surprised. A lot of people kind of like that film, and I watched it and I kind of liked it as well. And feel the same way about the first Sing. But one film that could have been nominated, but I mean, there were a lot of good contenders this year. I have to admit that. Ron's Gone Wrong. Most people have probably forgotten this film by now, but there's something about this film that I think is very topical for today, and I think will be topical for several years. Basically about a kid who gets a toy it's not even really a toy, but it's essentially like an interface thing that is, it's really difficult to describe the plot of Ron's Gone Wrong, but I have to admit, I feel like it's one of those films that kind of shows what time we're living in, and hey, it might be dated in the future. Also, Addams Family 2 came out this year, or that year, so glad it wasn't on the list. I'm guessing it probably wasn't very good. Anyway, so next time we're going to discuss the 2020 Oscar winners. Yeah, I know, we all don't want to remember that, but perhaps we might want to remember the good times. Anyway, Mark from the Geek Church signing off. Okay, it's time to talk about the 2020 Best Animated Film of the year according to the Oscars, or the Academy. And I gotta admit, there's some good nominees on here. Nominees were Soul, Onward, Over the Moon, Shaun the Sheep, Farmageddon, and Wolfwalkers. And the winner is Soul. And in this case, I absolutely agree. Soul is a triumph. I did a review of I did kind of a what do you call it? A chart of like best and worst Pixar films. Soul nearly made it to the top, and I don't really want to get to what actually did make it to the top, but Soul is an absolute gem of a film, and I was watching it the other day, and it's hard to watch because there are scenes in it that are very much heartwarming as they are heartbreaking, and if you haven't seen this one, you should. But hey, I'm sure you've seen Soul. But if you hadn't seen Onward, I think this is good. This is a good Pixar film. Its world building is actually kind of interesting, and it's one of those films that I think gains more steam as it goes along, because by the time this film got to the end, I was totally into it. This modern type fantasy setting is nothing new, but the way they kind of framed it, and using the Pixar animation style was pretty awesome, actually. So, yeah, if Soul didn't exist, maybe this one would have won. However, here's the thing. There are 2 films on this list I haven't seen. The first is Over the Moon, and the next is Wolfwalkers. And I feel bad by saying that because, yeah, I try and see some of these things, but some of these things I can't find anywhere. And maybe it's because I haven't looked hard enough. And I don't think I've even heard of these 2 films until I was doing this list. Sorry about that. As for Shaun the Sheep 2, Farmageddon, I remember watching that one and thinking that it had some funny moments because, well, that's what Aardman films are right now. Just a bunch of sometimes funny moments, really. I have to be very honest in my assertion of Aardman and their quality of work at this present time. But I don't want to be cruel or mean because Aardman has produced a lot of great works over the years. What can I say? So The Croods: The New Age didn't get nominated. I think I started that one, but I really couldn't get into it. The Croods, I think, is a really well done film, but I just started that one and it had that kind of like, well, we don't really know what to do. Here's a sequel kind of vibe. You know what I'm saying? I think you probably do. And Trolls World Tour didn't make it, so don't know why. Maybe it wasn't as good. I think, did Trolls even make it? I'll get to that when I get to whatever year Trolls came out. Hey, and remember Scoob? Yeah, that was 2020, so no one was going to the theater because they were all closed, and Scoob, I think, ended up getting pushed directly to Max or video, and yeah, honestly, I actually kind of like this film, but the problem is, like, yeah, it's clearly there to try and jumpstart a Hanna-Barbera connected universe that never really happened because the film didn't do all so well. So yeah. And oh yeah, there was a SpongeBob movie released that year. Sponge Out of Water, was that the one? No, that was a different one. I'm sorry. It was Sponge on the Run. I think that was the title. I'm not surprised that didn't make it. They tried to introduce that new style, which a lot of SpongeBob fans will really hate. Anyway, we're going to go turn back the clock to 2019 on our next episode to discuss the Oscar nominees and winner for Best Animated Film. For now, this is Mark Rollins signing. All right, it is 2019, or at least we're going to talk about 2019, the Best Animated Film Oscar nominations and the winner. And the nominations are Toy Story 4, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, I Lost My Body, Klaus, and The Missing Link. And the winner is Toy Story 4. All right, I'm probably going to agree with this decision here. Now, Toy Story 4 was an interesting film, to say the least. Generally, when you get to the 4th in your franchise, things get really, really weak. And at that point in time, you start to like break off and you kind of wonder like, why do we make this again? Toy Story 4 is an interesting concept for a film. It took the idea of how a lost toy can actually start their own kind of life, as well as dealing with the retirement. And they're making Toy Story 5, and I'm told they're going to bring Tom Hanks back for some reason, which seems odd to me, because it felt like they were kind of retiring him in this. But hey, a lot of other people have complained about that. Now, as to How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, that feels like the Kung Fu Panda 3 for me. There's something about this... I don't know. There was something about those two series that always had a really great second offering, but then when it got to the third, I kind of felt like they'd kind of ran out of ideas. I did think that the ending was very tender, as far as I get the feeling like they're sort of ending this franchise. They knew they were ending the franchise. Seeing Hiccup's kids see Hiccup for the first time is extremely a wonderful ending, but for the most part, I don't really remember a lot of this film. Anyway, so as far as Klaus, that was, I think, released to Netflix, a 2D Hollywood movie, and I think this is one of the first times I've seen a holiday movie end up on this list, because there were a lot of holiday movies that I've discussed in the past that didn't end up getting nominated, and I remember watching this one. I thought it was really good, but it's not one I really watch every year, but you know what? Christmas comes around, I'm going to have to watch it again. So, I Lost My Body I found it on Netflix, and this is a very intriguing story that I didn't really expect. I think it's a French film. And it's about a guy who gets his hand severed, and then the hand is just crawling toward him. And you might think that sounds like a horror film. It's not. It's kind of doing something on its own, and I kind of like what this film is doing, which I didn't really expect to like this film. I didn't even really know what to even think of this, that this film was going to have a crawling hand in this. I thought it was going to be, I lost my body, like, it was going to be a ghost or something going around, but no, it didn't happen. You should see it. It's pretty good. I think it does deserve an Oscar nomination. It seemed pretty good to me. But then when it comes to other films, like, say, Missing Link, that's a Laika project, and I like Laika for the most part. This was the first time I watched a Laika product, and I kind of said, you know what? I don't really like this movie. I watched this movie, and I kind of went like, I think there was just something about this film that didn't really work for me. I felt like this film had done things that had been done in other films. And at the end, there's this final conflict on a bridge, and none of the characters are doing anything that makes sense. And if you've seen the scene, maybe you know what I'm talking about. But hey, I'll let you decide how you feel about it. So there were other films that were not nominated that I think didn't deserve to get nominated. Like, for example, The Addams Family. Yeah, they remember that thing, and they made a second one. So that's kind of weird. I think didn't that just come out like the following year or something? I don't know. Addams Family didn't really deserve it, so yeah, I'm going to give that. Spies in Disguise, I did see that one. It is kind of funny. It's an interesting piece. I think it's one of Blue Sky's last projects, so yeah, that's what you get from that. Oh, besides Nimona. So, yeah, okay, so, alright. Now, I heard this film, Abominable, was good. Abominable? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I heard that was very good. And Frozen 2 came out this year. Why didn't that get a nomination? I don't think it was good enough to be nominated, honestly. I mean, did I have to... I mean, if I had to choose, I would probably say, yeah, okay, if you want to go with Frozen 2, for lack of better entrance, I guess you could kind of do that. Maybe. So, and also other franchises didn't get nominated, like Secret Life of Pets 2. Yeah, I think that franchise is dead, right? I don't think there's been a third one planned. I don't know. And then Angry Birds 2. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be an Angry Birds 3, honestly, so... And I'm actually surprised Angry Birds 2 got nominated. But I'm actually told Angry Birds 2 is a better movie than the first one. But hey, you never know. So I guess we can assume those franchises are over. And another franchise that kind of ended was the Lego Movie Part 2, the second part or whatever the subtitle is. Not very well received. And yeah, even if it had been better than the first one, which, honestly, that's a high bar, okay? But, yeah, and I'll talk about that one when I get to 2014 or whenever that came out. But Lego Movie 2 might have been eligible for a nomination. I don't know. Haven't heard much talk about Ugly Dolls. Anyone even heard of this film? I guess it came out that year, so... Let's see. And then there's the film Weathering with You, and this always gets... When you get to a film that's from Japan, like some of these Studio Ghibli films, a lot of times they came out like the year before that, but they often don't get to America by this time, and then the Academy like sees it and goes like, oh, we can nominate that. So who knows? There's also this film Niza, which I'm told is starting to get a lot of press because I'm told Niza 2 has made more money than any animated film ever. And it's a Chinese film, and I think we'll be hearing more about Niza, as well as the Niza 2. But hey, we might talk about that some other time. For now, we're going to talk about the 2018 Best Animated Films next time. So yeah, this is Mark Rollins from the Geek Church, signing off. Okay, let's talk about 2018 Best Animated Films that the Oscars chose, their nominees, and the winner, and the ones they really should have chosen. But hey, so let's talk about the nominees. It was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Incredibles 2, Isle of Dogs, Mirai, and Ralph Breaks the Internet. And in this case, the winner was the one I would have picked, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah, man, I'm totally on board for this, because this film is not only one of the best animated films of all time, it is one of the best films of all time. And I'm I'm sticking with that. And yeah. What more can I say? Yes, I'm not as fond as the sequel as I am of this film, but for sure, totally deserve the nomination, totally deserve the win. I'll give you that. I will have to say that a lot of these animated films that came out this year were just mediocre. Like Incredibles 2, I just didn't really like this film. I've tried to watch it again and to see if maybe I was just in a bad mood the first time I saw it, but I just feel like this didn't really do the first one a lot more justice. And now they're making a third one, so I don't even know what they're going to do with this. The plot of Incredibles 2 is incredibly weird, and it goes in areas that I would have never gone with this. And maybe I don't know, maybe if it took place years later rather than just minutes later after the first one, they might have had something with this. There are plot lines in this film that just go nowhere, and even the plot itself, if you really stop to think about it, doesn't really make a lot of sense. So, Isle of Dogs, when I saw the trailers for that, I thought this had a lot of promise. I mean, it has Wes Anderson's fantastic Mr. Fox stop-motion claymation style. And I thought I was going to really love this one, but I kind of didn't. It's a story that's a bit too experimental and yet not experimental enough. And you'd have to watch this movie to understand that. But I wasn't really certain. When I got to the end of this film, I wasn't really certain what I was supposed to take away from it. It's just kind of... There's a lot of celebrity voices involved in a film that just kind of like, it was just like, meh. Anyway, as for Mirai, I tried to get into this film. I tried to watch it. It just felt so childish. And maybe that is the point of how you feel as a child and stuff like that. And I just couldn't really relate with it. Eventually, I just shut it off. So, yeah, I don't think that's... But hey, I think the worst of these was Ralph Breaks the Internet. And this is a film that probably has a good movie in it somewhere. I remember talking about it on my website. It feels like, but it doesn't feel like it's a Ralph movie. And I would have to say the protagonist, if you're really getting into it, is probably Vanellope von Sweet. But there's just something off about it. I think it's trying to make statements about internet culture and stuff like that. You don't need Ralph to do this. You could have done this some other way. And the fact they didn't, the fact they just tried to pair it with Ralph, I don't know, it just didn't really work. So what else didn't make it to nominations? Well, there was Early Man, another Aardman film, which has some really funny jokes in it here and there, but it's about cavemen playing soccer. Does that sound interesting to you? Honestly, I can't even tell if Aardman is making movies and are realizing that their movies have been done before. I kind of felt like Early Man was like a sports movie that didn't even know it was a sports movie. That was like going like, I mean, I kind of felt like, these things are cliches, right? And I don't know how self-aware this film was. Was it deliberately trying to be not self-aware? And can you do that anymore? I don't know. So then there was Sherlock Gnomes. Yeah, I mean, if you do a Romeo and Juliet with garden gnomes, I guess the next logical step is to, I don't know, put Sherlock Holmes in it and put Johnny Depp in it or something, right? Isn't that what happened? Crazy. Oh yeah, that Grinch movie came out this year. Didn't get a lot of love. Didn't even get an Oscar nomination, and not exactly a holiday classic, is it? No. Another Hotel Transylvania film, Summer Vacation, came out, didn't make the cut. But the film that I think really should have got nomination, just for the heck of it, because honestly, there was a lot of mediocrity in the nominations this year. Teen Titans Go to the Movies. You might at me on this in the comments, but hey, I think this film was great. At least deserved a nomination. It can't beat out Into the Spider-Verse because nothing really could that year, but hey, just give it a little chance, don't you? And if you haven't seen it, give that a chance. Anyway, next time we're going to be talking about 2017 and the best animated films that came out that year. Till then, this is Mark Rollins from the Geek Church, signing off. Hey everyone, it's time to talk about the 2017 best animated film for the Oscars of that year. And the nominees are Coco, Boss Baby, The Breadwinner, Ferdinand, and Loving Vincent. And the winner is Coco. Yeah, I'm definitely going to agree with this one. I think this was probably the best animated film this year. This film is just overall awesome. I love its visual style. I love its story. And of course, I love the ending, which should bring even the hardest of hearts to tears. That's Pixar giving you the feels right here. Anyway, I'm going to just go ahead and say this before I get to the other nominees, that the Lego Batman movie should have been one of them. I think this is an awesome film, and it definitely takes the Lego animation into a great direction, because I'd like to think that the Oscar or the Academy tends to look at that whenever looking at the best animated film. Like, does it take animation in a different direction and stuff like that? I think that needs to be a part of the criteria, as well as a good story and overall awesome film. Lego Ninjago movie, yeah, I can see why that didn't get that. I think these Lego movie series were starting to diminish in quality by this point, and I've already talked about Lego Movie 2 and yeah, how that pretty much killed any Lego franchise. Except for that Pharrell Williams movie. Anyway, so, I mean, I don't know. The fact that I even have Boss Baby on this list is just, I don't know. I mean, in its defense, this was a better film than I thought it was going to be. And yes, I did see it, just because. But I have to admit, like, this would be a film like, say, Mirai, another film that I didn't finish. It's very... I mean, if you're a kid, you can understand this film pretty well. And if you're an adult, you can actually understand a lot of this film even better. Anyway. The Breadwinner, I'm afraid I haven't seen, so I can't really say anything about that. I'm sorry, it definitely does look like a good film. As with Loving Vincent, if it's about Vincent van Gogh, which it looks like it's about, I mean, seriously, that's how little I know about this film. Vincent van Gogh's art could make an excellent animation piece, so yeah. Ferdinand, I did see, I don't know, it feels like it was more of a John Cena type vehicle, and yeah, no, I mean, I didn't think it was really worth writing home about. Okay, so other films that probably could have made it, Captain Underpants, haven't seen it, but I mean, it's based on the book series, and people have told me that it's pretty good, so hey. And then there was Smurfs in the Lost Village. I did see this one, and actually, it has one good line. That's what I remember. But I like the idea of, say, like another village of the Smurfs that has all female Smurfs. I actually think that's a pretty good concept. I think that's the best thing you can do, and they're still trying to do this Smurfs thing again. I think they're doing another animated film. And of course, let's talk about the Emoji Movie. Yeah, we don't want to talk about the Emoji Movie. No one wants to talk about the Emoji Movie. I can't believe that Sony did this movie and then they did Into the Spider-Verse the next year. Boy, talk about going from rags to riches. Also, then there's this film called The Star. I haven't seen it. It's a holiday movie, so yeah, those usually don't get picked by the Oscars. Historically speaking, I've looked at most of the animated Christmas movies or holiday movies that come out. Usually they don't get a nomination. Also, Cars 3 didn't make this list. I really thought that was a better film than Boss Baby. It's hard to believe that this Pixar film just didn't make it, but I believe it came out this year, so yeah, I think it did deserve a nomination because I actually think there's a really decent story in Cars 3. It's probably the best of the Cars movies, but it does get kind of boring, and yeah, I will have to say the ending is a little bit like, really? That's how we're going to end this thing? And by end this thing, I mean, actually, that's not true. I think Cars will always stay alive. I think there was a series they made with Mater and Lightning McQueen, so who knows? Anyway, so join us next time for the 2016 Best Animated Film Oscar winners. And now for the 2016 Best Animated Film Oscar nominees and winners. And the nominees were Zootopia, Kubo and the Two Strings, Moana, My Life as a Courgette, or Zucchini, and The Red Turtle. And the winner was Zootopia. Yeah, I'm pretty much going to agree with on this one. I mean, Zootopia was a film that really took my breath away as far as like a film that was really dealing with some serious complex issues as far as I guess racism and classism and all kinds of things, and just how society just continues to kind of be like the society that it is. This is a film which has predators and prey, and it could have easily made the predators the complete villains in this thing, but instead they decided to go with a more complex route that I really appreciate. I don't know how the sequel will fare, and honestly, I might just wait for that to come on Disney Plus before I watch that in the theater, unless I hear that it's really good. I don't see how they could top this. This is why you don't really make a good first one. Okay, honestly, as far as films I've rewatched the most, I would say Moana, I would say definitely deserved the nomination. I love this movie. I didn't think I was going to like this movie, but I really, after I watched it the first time, I couldn't stop watching it after that. And that shows just how much I really love this film. I love its message. I love its visuals. And yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in this thing. So... the songs are also good too. Now, also with Kubo and the Two Strings, I did see that in the theater. It's another Laika film, and I usually am very complimentary of whatever Laika does. And I think this deserves the respect and at least the Oscar nomination. It's definitely trying to do something very different, which I really appreciate. This film feels a lot more grown up than, say, something that Disney would do. And for that, I really appreciate that. It's a good meta-commentary on storytelling altogether. Perfect film. You should see it if you haven't seen it. Or at least perfect stop-motion film. Actually, it's not quite perfect, but it is good enough to see, and it deserves the nomination, which I've said before. Okay, now My Life as a Courgette, which I know better as My Life as a Zucchini, I actually did see. It's a film about orphans. It's done in stop-motion, I believe. It really deals with some harsh issues of... I believe domestic violence and broken homes, and I was surprised to see there's a really great moment in this film when like an adult starts crying after they have adopted an orphan, which I think it's played by Nick Offerman, which Nick Offerman, I mean, usually he tends to class up pretty much anything he's in. This is a good film. You should see it if you haven't. And I think this might be the first time I saw all 5 of these things. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but anyway. So The Red Turtle, I did see. It's quite interesting. It's one of those films in which, like, it's one of those films where something happens and then you kind of realize, like, oh, this is like a cyclical thing, isn't it? And I might be spoiling the film for that, but I think... I'll leave it up to you as to decide what this is. Is it worth an Oscar nomination? I'd say yeah. Ditto My Life as a Courgette and stuff like that. Wow, I believe actually all 5 of these. This is the first time I've actually been in sync on this. Now, that being said, are there other films that could have been nominated? Sure. I notice, now this is the issue when seeing films from Asia or anime type films. They tend to show up at the Oscars like 1 year after they've actually been done. This is the same with Your Name. This was a good film, and I remember really liking this film when it first came out, or when I first watched it. I kept seeing a lot of people try and tear this film apart as far as its plot holes, and it is riddled with them. And I have to admit, okay, I'm not saying that's why they passed on it, but dude, I mean, come on. So, Illumination did not have a good year with the Oscars, because they got passed as far as Sing and The Secret Life of Pets, both of which came out this year. I'm sure they made their money. They're not exactly classics, but they have sequels, which I've already discussed on other things. So, yeah, I think those got passed up for Oscars too. I could be wrong. I can't really remember, honestly. And other 2 franchises started this year. The Trolls movie started, and I actually liked that film, but I didn't really think it was Oscar-worthy. It's one of those films that is definitely made for very young audiences, and for that, I just kind of felt like, Ditto with the Angry Birds movie. I did watch that. At least it ends with something that's very similar to the game. I mean, they are launching themselves at pigs. Not a lot of video game movies do that. They tend to go their own direction. But hey, yeah, I took that from some other commentator or something like that. Probably not worth a nomination, though. And Sausage Party? Oh, man, yeah, I guess. As much as I tried to getting into the animated series they made off of this, and it was terrible. I just didn't bother. But I actually really like what this film is trying to do, and I think it's obviously a very raunchy parody of CG animated films. Honestly, I think that alone makes it worth at least seeing, but probably not worthy of an Oscar, but at least they tried something different. Oh yeah, speaking of something different, there was Storks that came out that year, and yeah, I don't know why that didn't really work and stuff. And then, of course, no one is surprised by Norm of the North, which most people consider to be one of the worst animated films of that year. And I almost forgot about Ratchet and Clank. Remember this film? Yeah, no. Video game type films, I mean, we already had the Angry Birds one this year, but technically it's not a video game, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. It's like, but here's the thing that really surprises me. Finding Dory did not get a nomination, and I think it deserved one. But I know that they can only have, like, I don't know, 5 movies in this, probably, because that seems to be the max every time I look. I was surprised that usually the Pixar film gets at least a nomination, but nothing? Really? I'm just shocked. Anyway, so I don't know. That's just kind of weird. So, oh yeah, also Kung Fu Panda 3 came out this year, and I'm not surprised that it didn't get a nomination. And I have seen it, and I've seen it again, but it's not one that... It's like How to Train Your Dragon 3, which I already discussed. It's like at some point in time, all the glory of that thing just kind of tapered off there. I didn't really think there was anything more they can do. In fact, they made a 4th one of that, kind of like, eh. Okay. All right, join us next time where we're going to discuss the 2015 Best Animated Films, Oscars, nominees, and so forth. It's time to talk about the 2015 Best Animated Films, Oscar winners, nominees, and so forth. And the nominees were Inside Out, Anomalisa, Boy in the World, Shaun the Sheep Movie, and When Marnie Was There. And the winner was Inside Out. Now, in this case, I'm not really going to agree with this because the film that I actually would have thought maybe should have gotten at least a nomination, and I particularly have a soft spot for, was the Peanuts movie. I actually thought this was pretty good, and it did come out this year, and it's nowhere. But Inside Out was a pretty good concept. Doesn't necessarily hold water plot-wise. It's really more about feelings than it is about story, and I think that maybe that's the point, is that the feelings do matter. And yeah, and when we start talking about Inside Out, we start talking about whether or not the feelings actually control Riley, or does Riley control them, and it's never really... That's not really brought up, is it? I don't know. I guess we'll... Okay, now for this next film, Anomalisa, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. This one I saw, and you should, and it is worth the Oscar nomination. It might have gotten the Best Picture nomination, I think, maybe. I could be wrong about that. I seem to remember that it did, but my memory could be off. But essentially, this is a stop-motion film that's R-rated. It's for adults. And it even has a sex scene in it that's quite awkward, but it's there. And I was actually surprised that somebody really took the time to make something like this. And if you're familiar with stop motion, it's a hard business to be in, isn't it? And someone actually made a film that's really about somebody's mental health. And it's done in a way that I actually think is very interesting. And I don't want to reveal too much about this film. This is one of those films that you probably should go into it not knowing about it, because this is one of those films where you're kind of discovering what is happening in this film. And I'm going to recommend it. Okay, the Shaun the Sheep movie, I did see. I don't think it has any single line of dialogue. Most of the characters talk with gibberish and mumbling. Let's see. I think it has its, like I said, like I've talked about before with Aardman, how they often do their films with a few really good jokes in them. And Shaun the Sheep has that, and there's just, you know, it's nothing super deep, but does it really have to be? I mean, it's Shaun the Sheep, for crying out loud. It's got one of the best theme songs in the world. Anyway, so when Marnie was there, I remember seeing this film. I remember really liking this film. And I do support its nomination. So, yeah, I'm just going to say great. As far as Boy in the World, I do not remember ever hearing of this film. But it got nominated, and I unfortunately haven't seen it. Sounds pretty good, I guess. Anyway, what didn't get nominated, and I'm not too surprised, was the Minions movie, which, well, hey, I mean, they're kind of designed to be a hit, and it was. I mean, I actually heard that movie made quite a bit more money than it was expected to, but yeah. So, and also, remember the movie Home, the Dreamworks film with the Sheldon Cooper and Alien and the Rihanna little girl? Yeah, didn't get nominated, but yeah. So, also the film Strange Magic, boy, I think that was like, George Lucas apparently had some input on this thing, which I'm really surprised. This film didn't really do so well either, so yeah. And of course, there's also The Good Dinosaur, which this is considered Pixar's biggest bomb, and unfortunately, yeah, I mean, there are films that I think there are Pixar films that are worse than it, but I've only watched it I think I watched it again when I was doing a Pixar review a while ago, and I didn't really think it was all that great. And okay, Hotel Transylvania 2 was also not nominated. I think that was it. I'm not certain why the Academy just does not want these Hotel Transylvania films, but that's that. So anyway, that's it for 2015. So next time we'll talk about 2014 film, Best Animated Film, Oscars, and winners. Okay, time to talk about the 2014 Best Animated Film, Oscar nominees, and winner. And the nominees were Big Hero 6, The Box Trolls, How to Train Your Dragon 2, Song of the Sea, and A Tale of Princess Kaguya. I might be mispronouncing that. And the winner was Big Hero 6. Yeah, here's the thing. I'm going to just outright just get this over with, because I did not agree with their win on this. Because there was a very perfect animated film that came out this year called The Lego Movie, and it did not get nominated. Why in the world did that happen? I have no idea why that could have happened. That was easily the best animated film this year. It's one of the best films of that year, period. And I am not going to stop. And yeah, this is a grudge I'm going to hold against them for quite a while. Actually, forever. I shouldn't hold a grudge at all. But hey, I mean, it's been done. What's past is past. That being said, let's talk about Big Hero 6. It is a very good movie. I like its take on the superhero genre. This is a film that could have easily been, I mean, it's using Marvel IP. It could have easily, I don't know, done some work and make it take place in the Marvel Universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe. Surprised I didn't go that direction, but I think it's probably good that it, considering its setting, I like its futuristic combination of San Francisco and Tokyo setting. Yeah, I actually think it's probably better that it was doing its own thing. And I guess there's probably not going to be a sequel to it, maybe, but it had a series, which I tried to watch, and I stopped watching after the third season, which was the last season, and I don't know if anything else is going to be done with this. Probably not. Okay, The Box Trolls is a film that I didn't really like, but I didn't really hate. I like anything that Laika usually makes, and because I can tell that this has a lot of work put into it, and a very interesting concept for this film. It feels like a film that really shouldn't be for kids. It has a really dark kind of look to it. I'm actually surprised that it was even considered, because I get the feeling like Laika really wants to make this real adult-oriented film like Nominees, which I've already talked about last time. So who knows? Okay, so Song of the Sea, that looks pretty interesting. I wish I had seen it. And I'd also wish I had seen Tale of Princess Kaguya, and I might be mispronouncing that, and I'm sorry if I am. Both of those look pretty good. Probably should have ended up seeing that before I talked about this, but hey. So let's talk about How to Train Your Dragon 2. I thought it was very good. And if it had won, well, okay, I guess I would have complained, because I probably would have said, hey, how come you didn't pick the Lego Movie? And I really maybe need to let that go. This is one of those films that does its sequel right, where everything gets bigger and the stakes get higher and it makes sense and the characters grow and change. And I think this is a good, honestly, How to Train Your Dragon 2 is a blueprint for how to make a really good sequel to an animated film. I'll give it that. Okay, surprised a film, The Book of Life, didn't get a nomination. I really enjoyed the way that film was done, and even its animation style with its weird kind of literally wooden-looking characters actually kind of was rather interesting. I've seen it a few times, and I kind of enjoy what this film is trying to do. And it would be very easy to compare it to Coco. There are some similarities, but it really is its own thing, and so I don't feel right even comparing it. Anyway, so not surprised that Mr. Peabody and Sherman and the Penguins of Madagascar also didn't really make the cut for the nomination. Not a good time for Dreamworks, was it? Don't get me wrong, these are fun films, but several of them lack depth. Peabody and Sherman does have some pretty fun moments in it. Okay, speaking of depth or lack thereof, remember what else came out this year? Rio 2. Yeah, I know. I think I'll talk about Rio when I get there, but I didn't really see this one. Also, The Nut Job. I think I tried to maybe not see this. I think I tried to watch this, but it just wasn't really that good, so I just kind of stopped watching it. So I'm going to put haven't seen on that. And then how did another Planes movie get greenlit? That's so weird, but Planes Fire and Rescue came out that summer of this year and didn't get a nomination. Haven't seen it, so can't really say anything good or bad about it. Anyway, so next time we'll talk about the 2013 nominees and the winner. And that's all for now. Mark Rollins signing off. Okay, time to talk about the 2013 Best Animated Film that the Oscars nominated and then eventually picked. And the nominees were Frozen, The Croods, Despicable Me 2, Ernest and Celestine, and The Wind Rises. And the winner was Frozen. Yeah, I don't really agree. Frozen was a landmark animation film. I think at the time it made the most money that any animated film have ever made. And hey, we all remember the song. I don't even have to tell you which song. And which is perfect number, honestly. I will have to admit that. So now, here's the deal. Monsters University also came out this year. Where is it? It didn't get nominated. I personally think it deserved a nomination. Where is it? I think this film is actually pretty darn good. And I've watched it several times, and I can't really say it's better than the first one, but I can say it is a decent enough film to garner a nomination. Where was it? Okay, time to drop this. What about The Croods? The Croods, I think, is also a very good film, and I think it's trying to do it does a really interesting thing about dealing with a family dynamic and dealing with this idea about how a father is trying to protect his family, and from a very, very hostile atmosphere, and how he sometimes forgets things. And honestly, these are things I've seen done in other movies, but I really like how this film was done. And seeing Nicolas Cage as the main caveman here was actually pretty good casting, I must admit. It's very believable, and so, yeah. So, and I kind of like Despicable Me too, but I think the original was not nominated for an Oscar, so how did the sequel get an Oscar nominee? Usually that doesn't happen. Usually it's the original, and then the sequel usually gets not that, unless it's decent enough, but honestly, yeah, I thought there's enough fun in Despicable Me 2 to, I guess, deserve a nomination. Why not? I'll just give it that. But Ernest and Celestine, I wish I could say that I saw. Unfortunately, I haven't seen. I'll have to see if I can't catch that before I compile this stuff into my final episode or whatever. Anyway, then there's The Wind Rises, a Studio Ghibli film. I liked it. I did see it. That's a weird thing that they do where every time there's a big sound effect, you actually hear people just kind of make these whoosh kind of sounds. And I kind of thought that was really odd for a film that is really about a guy who just really loves airplanes and wants to design airplanes, even though they might be used for the war. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in this thing. And it's Studio Ghibli, so usually they make some pretty great stuff. Okay, so there were a lot of films that didn't really get any nomination. There was the film Epic, which did I see that one? It's weird that I don't remember if I saw that one or not. I'm going to say I haven't seen it. Freebirds, I know I did see, and this film is just kind of... I mean, it's weird that there was 2 time travel... Oh, I'm sorry. The Peabody and Sherman film happened the following year, but I think they used the same time machine, maybe. I don't know. But it was weird that this film kind of... I can understand why it didn't get an Oscar nomination. I mean, it's a turkey film, literally. And then there's Escape from Planet Earth, which I also didn't see, and hey... not to mention Turbo. Remember that movie about the super fast snail with, I think, Ryan Reynolds in it? Yeah. And also Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. Did I see this one? I think I remember starting it, but I don't think I actually finished it. And yeah, I'm going to say haven't seen, so can't really say anything about that. Turbo I did see. I'm pretty sure of that. So yeah, and then also Planes came out this year. Remember that movie? Yeah, I know, not a lot of people did. I don't know why, I've just never seen it. You know, usually I see all these like Disney animated films, but I don't know. Maybe I was just sick of cars and didn't want to go to planes. Anyway, so those were the nominees and winners, and next time we'll discuss the 2012 Oscar, Best Animated Oscar winners and nominees. Mark Rollins from The Geek Church, signing off.